Yeah, I mean, I want to focus on Chicago and Ryan Poles because he was wheeling and dealing. We know just from what Roger said and what Ian just talked about, they got Chase Claypool, and I think they were big winners in that department because, yes, some people were like, well, that was a second-round draft pick, and you look at DeAndre Hopkins, who went for a second, and like, hey, we could have gotten Chase for less. But when you hear Ian, what he said, when you hear Aaron Rodgers say, hey, we were in on the Claypool, they're in the same division. The fact that the Bears were able to land Claypool and he didn't go to the Green Bay Packers is a huge win for them because when you look at 2023, there aren't a ton of receivers when free agency hits that teams are going to target and want to get in there. Nelson Aguilar's on that list, but we saw a lot of these guys, whether it was Terry McLaurin, whether it was DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, guys that were going to be free agents, re-sign with their team. So getting a weapon like Claypool for Justin Fields, who already has Darnell Mooney on the other side, it helps them because they're at the bottom when it comes to a lot of stats receiving-wise. And then you also look at Justin Fields, how much he's grown over the last few weeks and what he's been able to do with that offense, not only running, but being able to do better passing the ball as well is going to go a long way. And Ryan Poles, a guy who's gotten there, and he's looking for the future. Yep. The only receivers on the roster for next year are Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney, and Velus Jones. Those are the only guys that they have on the roster, and there's not a lot in free agency. So landing a guy like Claypool will go a long way in helping Justin Fields in this Bears offense.
I'm going to see you with the first-year GM as well and go to Minnesota and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah because this is like beyond being born and bred in Minnesota and being a Vikings fan. Like this is just a taste of what it feels like to live and grow up as a Vikings fan. And this is uncharted territory for the Vikings. The Vikings, first of all, are off to a start that they haven't seen in quite some time. This is the first intra-divisional trade for the Lions in 1998, I think the year was. Making a move like this to empower yourself on a team that's already good is not what Vikings fans are used to. This is uncharted territory. Credit to the first-year guys that are in Minnesota and making a quiet name for themselves. First-year GM, first-year head coach, and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell. We don't talk about them yet, but it feels like they're making moves at this point. Here's a look at, there's 3 teams across the league that have first-year guys in charge. These are headline-worthy teams this season. Look at what the Giants are doing so far. Look at how much we've been talking about Ryan Poles and some of the bigger wins that the Bears have been able to pull off this season. This might not be a win-now season for the Bears, but Ryan Poles is getting the job done. The Giants look really good. And the Vikings, they could have sat on their hands and said, look, we've won this much so far, which honestly, in a tainted way, feels like a very Minnesota Vikings thing to do. Sure. But this is a new regime. This is what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was brought in for. This is why Kevin O'Connell is there. Makes me a little nervous with my Vikings hat on, sure. But like this, because it's not what I'm used to seeing, I guess, from the Vikings.
It's a brand new day for the Vikings. Yeah. I saw Joe Schoen up there. Peter, if I wanted some next level insight into Joe Schoen and what makes him tick, where would I get that?
I do a podcast this season with Peter Schrager. The guest this week is Giants GM Joe Schoen.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Talks a bunch about it. And guess he's recording this yesterday during the trade deadline, but you better believe he was checking his phone and he was active. They didn't make a move, but to have fresh blood, especially in Minnesota, where we love Zim and we love what Rick Spielman did, but this is like a ray of sunshine in a lot of ways for Vikings fans because it's, hey, there's an aggressive nature and they're willing to trade within the division. Remember, they also made a trade in the draft, the Jamison Williams trade, also with the Lions in the division. You don't usually see that. And that's all lovely. Bears and Vikings. Let's get to it.
Get to it.
What are the Packers doing?
Okay. Get to the cheese of it.
So I almost feel like this one might have been maybe you do give more than a second round for Chase Claypool. It has nothing to do with Chase Claypool. It's about the symbolism of, yes, we're trying to do something to help you, Aaron Rodgers. I don't know what Sammy Watkins is going to provide this year. I don't know if Randall Cobb is coming back with his. I don't know if the young man Watson, the second-round pick, is going to do it. I don't know if Dobbs is suddenly going to be. I look at this. Chase Claypool would have been the #1 wide receiver in Green Bay. Sure. And yes, Alan Lazard might return, and we'll see what happens with his ability. But, like, go and make the trade. Go and make the trade. Do something. Show at least that, hey, we're doing it. I know it sounds like we don't want to get fleeced by the Bears and get beaten in division, and I understand why the Bears might not want to trade in division and see, or the Steelers, I'm sorry, makes no reference to the in division stuff. But you lost to the Bears on this one. To me, they got a receiver that you wanted, you didn't get. And Brandon Cooks makes $18 million. I don't know. I might have done that too.
Figure it out.
The symbolism is huge in this one. So now what do we do? Oh, we've lost 4 in a row. Rodgers is talking on McAfee that he's talking with the GM, and we didn't do anything. back to good old Packers fashion football, where it just brings Lombardi after Lombardi the last few years. This is what we do. We stay with it. I don't know. I think it would have made a message to not only Rodgers, who are constantly worried about what he's thinking, but also the fan base that, like, yes, we're awake, and yes, we know that maybe we didn't get the best compensation, but we're trying our damnedest to do something to save this season. They didn't do anything. And maybe we'll be the ones who have egg on our face when they go and they hoist a Lombardi with Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs being the stars of the Super Bowl. I would bet against that right now. I would think that maybe a veteran receiver might have helped.
It's a strange time when the Packers are actually losing to the Bears. You know, like that doesn't happen, and they lost to the Bears yesterday. I'm very, very amused by Rodgers and the Packers right now. What's the name of that little Addams Family girl? Is that Wednesday? Or is it her brother Pugsley? I feel like Rodgers is like the child inside the mansion looking at the other kids playing outside. Oh my gosh, the Bears got a wide receiver and the Vikings got a really good tight end. And normally he's that kid up in the upstairs in the bedroom looking at like the other kids being like, haha, you losers, we're 7-1 at the deadline and I got everything I need and you're just scrambling to catch up with me. And I'm also amused by the steadily decreasing subtlety on his weekly media appearances. So there's the translation. I was hoping we would be breaking some news here on the show.
Yeah.
I'm refreshing my bleeping phone, waiting for the team to make a move. Let's go, let's go. I've had some talks with Brian. I went into Brian's office and I said, get me a player. And if you don't get me a player, let's sit down and watch some film, Brian, because I dare you to find one of two things. A wide receiver running the right route, and B, God forbid him actually getting open on the route, because nobody's open and the guys who are open are not in the right place. So get me somebody. That's what he's saying. I've had some talks with Brian, and normally, look, they don't have to do squat. And they can say, we're the Packers, and we're 7-1, and we blow the doors off the division. They're 3-5. They've lost 4 in a row. The offense is 26th in the league. They got nothing. They're going nowhere, and they did bupkis. And if I'm a fan, I'm like, that's it? That's acceptable? That's acceptable? We're going to ride this thing out, and we're going to be a 6-11 team this year? I'm pissed. And wait till Rodgers next week. Wait till Rodgers 2 months from now. I can't wait.
Saints moved up in the draft and got Chris Olave. The Eagles traded for A.J. Brown. You go through this, the Jamison Williams. The Lions went up and traded and got him. Packers had 2 first-round picks, didn't do a thing, and then they waited till the second round. They haven't done a thing in free agency or the trade deadline. Maybe they know better than I do.
Rodgers keeps talking about retirement. You want to go get this guy somebody to win now, and they haven't done it.
Well, when you say it that way, it's kind of like a, do they? Like that's where my brain goes. It's like, did they? Did they want to get a
grass greener on the other side?
Wait till you see how things are going when he just leaves after this year.
Exactly.
Financially, football-wise, just watch.
Ooh, spicy.